Because I want some airdropped tokens from everyone else that's going to build on top of you. Everyone else is going to build on a concentrated liquidity provider, a launch pad for concentrated liquidity. Oh man, I just saying it. I'm like, ooh, it's different. I want it. Hello everyone, this is me again, the MetaVerse Explorer. We are back with another Grape Solana Alpha AMA, this time with Cyclos. If you haven't heard of Cyclos, they are a concentrated liquidity provider and a swapping feature on Solana at the moment. They have some big backers and they're doing something new. They're going to be releasing an NFT very, very soon. So if you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button for me, come to the Grape Discord, have a chat to us, ask this guy some questions. In the meantime, let's get started with this AMA. Huntu, 0x Huntu, how are you going, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. So if anyone is in the audience at the moment listening, you can put some questions in the live questions channel just above this public stage. Keep it G-rated, guys, PG. So, Hantu, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please? How did you first get into crypto before we talk about Cyclos and your new NFTs being released?
Yeah, absolutely. So I sort of stumbled into crypto in 2017. I guess you could call it an early user of Bitcoin for well, I don't know if it's early, 2015, 16. Using it, I was living in outside my home country and essentially used it as a way to easily transfer funds around. And sort of when the ICO boom started, I got together with a group of I guess like-minded sort of people interested in crypto online, and essentially from that group we were doing research on different ICO opportunities and projects. And a pretty large media publication spurred out of that group. And essentially, I joined that publication as a partner and headed the research department for about a year and a half, 2 years. And from there, went on to Binance Research. So I spent the last, well, not the last 2 years now. It's been about, I don't know, 9 months since I left Binance. But for 2 years up until early 2021, I was with Binance Research, and basically essentially left, stepped out and started Cyclos with my co-founder Haddock.
Awesome, you got a rich history there. You know, a lot of us probably started out just doing simple transactions in countries that you know, the other Western Union companies take a lot of money from us, take the little
Exactly.
bit off the top, and then a next company takes a bit on the top. So yeah, just like everyone else, you know, we're experiencing it. So we'll dive into your team there. And I know you did say you're from Binance, but perhaps we'll get to that later. But we'll talk about your team. You say you did start Cyclos with your partner. Can you tell us about your partner and what kind of history he has, just briefly?
Absolutely, yeah. So Haddock, he was a sort of serial hackathon guy, if you can believe that's a thing. He was going from hackathon to hackathon, had a lot of great ideas. He's sort of an idea machine, which is one reason I really love working with him, constantly coming up with new stuff. And he had been a winner in ETH Denver, in CeeLo. This is over the course of like 2020 to 2021. Near protocol, and I caught wind of him that way because through my position with Binance, you know, Binance Research, you know, we always had our ear to the ground when it comes to layer one protocols and what's going on in those spaces. And in particular, this sort of, I guess, leads into how we got into Solana, but I was particularly interested in what was happening, what I saw happening in the Solana hackathon space. Obviously, on a technical level, Solana held a lot of, and continues to hold a lot of promise as a layer one protocol. But, you know, earlier this year, there was just so much going on. I think the most noise of all the layer ones, besides, you know, the ETH obviously had and continues to be the front runner there, but yeah, exactly. But we had, you know, BSC had its moment, and it really felt like Solana was having its moment.
Oh yeah, you guys must have been going crazy over at Binance Research when BNB and BSC started taking off. Am I right?
Absolutely, it was wild. I mean, there was just too much to even keep track of. It was really incredible to see that, especially not to go on a tangent necessarily, but at the end of the day, Binance is a centralized institution, but to see a centralized institution create a layer one chain that allows for so much sort of organic growth that's independent of the institution itself was a pretty cool thing to see. But watching that happen from zero to 60 so fast, it kind of gave us the insight into what to look for when the next ecosystem takes off, and we were seeing a lot of that early stage, the sort of signals and signs that were happening with Solana, much like we watched BSC take off. So that was a pretty big, I would say, a big motivator in terms of what led me and Haddock ultimately to into the Solana space.
And so you saw promise in the Solana ecosystem, the Solana blockchain, and you thought, this is a good place to start a product. And so you decided to start Cyclos Swap. Can you tell us a bit more about the process of why you decided to go to create a swap? Was it your partner's idea?
Yeah, so it's a good question. We kind of landed on the core product offering of Cyclos is concentrated liquidity. So the idea that this is something that Uniswap v3 essentially, I would say that the term they invented, and they're the forebearers of the first concentrated liquidity product on crypto in the crypto world. And essentially the idea was that liquidity providers can choose where they're going to place their liquidity on a market maker. Right. So instead of, for example, if you to use UniV2 as sort of the boilerplate example, when you deposit your assets on UniV2, they're spread on an even curve from zero, price of zero, all the way up to or above zero to infinity. And the idea behind that, or the idea behind UniV3 and this idea of concentrated liquidity is you can maximize the efficiency of your capital as a liquidity provider by choosing the price point or price points at which you would like that liquidity to be active. And correspondingly, it also has a benefit for anyone who's trading against that liquidity, because in theory or ideally, and we've been seeing this happen with UniV3 in practice, is that there's a lot more depth around whether if it's a volatile asset, there's a lot more depth in the price points that are currently being traded and sort of near, I would say, like the local goalposts, the local price points where traders can basically make a bet and say, okay, I think ETH is going to drop $200, and they can place most of their liquidity or a portion of their liquidity around that price point and soak up the fees when the price drops. So we really like this idea in the sense that we thought, okay, this could drastically improve. There's a lot of room on Solana to build this because it hasn't been built yet.
Yeah,
you
don't have many competitors in Solana, I was going to say.
Right, and we've heard of some guys that are using the term concentrated liquidity, but their products are more of the Dodo sort of. I'm not sure if you've heard of Dodo, but it's a
Dodo BSC.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's sort of this automated liquidity, which is a great product, but it's just different. It's ultimately it's not allowing the liquidity providers to really have full control over where they put that liquidity. So yeah, go ahead.
So my question is for someone who doesn't know anything about DeFi, doesn't know anything about liquidity pools. Tell us, what are the benefits for a retail person coming in and they say concentrated liquidity? What do they actually get? They get increased fees, because you have a tighter range that they're going to be providing liquidity for. Any other specific benefits that you should be using Cyclo for?
Yeah, this is interesting because, I think one of the you could call it critiques or points is that concentrated liquidity, setting up price points, isn't necessarily something um, that a beginner DeFi
Should be getting
user
into. Yeah.
should be getting into. But at the same time, I think it's not super counterintuitive. Or I should say it's rather intuitive. I mean, you set the price point between which you want the liquidity to be active. So I guess the benefit for them, yeah, is that they're able to earn a higher amount of fees in theory, so long as their assets are being utilized. Um, Compared to if they were to simply set and forget on a constant product market maker style product.
Yeah, I think for myself, like if I was going to go towards a concentrated liquidity route, I'd only do two stable pairs, USDC, USDT
That's
against each
exactly
other.
what I was about to say. Exactly. So
Yeah.
the really obvious use case here, thank you for bringing that up. The really obvious use case here is it's not rocket science to figure out where USDT and USDC is going to be trading at. And of course, the counter argument there is, okay, you're probably going to be getting a lot less of a fee share compared to if you're market making on a volatile asset pair. But that's not necessarily, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's still, you still have the still have a very competitive fee rate compared to like market making on a constant product market maker. So that's sort of the obvious point where a new DeFi user would get in to set their price point right around 99 cents, $1 on a stable pair asset, and let their assets sit and work for them.
Now, I do have a follow-up question to this because I've seen some other protocols building off Uniswap v3 where they actually automatically adjust the price range and the price target.
Yes.
Have you guys familiar with this, and are you working on this at all?
We are. Yeah, Visor, Euler, we love these products. There's a lot of inspiration there for us. And actually, so what we're post mainnet launch, so we're tentatively aiming right now for the mainnet launch by the end of the year. May spill over slightly beyond the end of the year, but we're aiming for end of the year.
Christmas is important.
It is. We are basically, so I guess this is a segue into the NFT thing, because essentially we're launching an NFT line to spur, almost as an ecosystem fund, to spur other projects to develop on top of Cyclos. So for example, if it's automated repositioning of the liquidity, or if it's developing liquidity incentives on top of Cyclos, because liquidity incentives on concentrated liquidity are a bit more involved or complicated than everyone sharing the same price curve. So we're launching this NFT line, the Cougar Click, which I guess there's a lot to be said there. But why are we raising extra money for it? We're raising money to spur ecosystem and fund ecosystem development on top of Cyclos.
Right. Okay. I've just linked that in the live chat, live questions for anyone to see the Cougar Click. So I want to get more into the brass tacks of what they actually do. So it's an ecosystem builder. Does that mean like it'll be providing them grants, or it'll be, for example, a select portion of the curve for the concentrated liquidity will actually be a Cougar Click NFT? What's the actual usage? Can you break it down for me, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in terms of the funds themselves, it's really simple. We're using the funds from the NFT raise to grant to teams that are building on top of Cyclos. That's
Right.
the idea. We also will be using them as grants, not just independently, but for upcoming Solana hackathons, so that Solana, basically a team can come in. They might not know anything about Cyclos, but here they'll have a grant to build on top of Cyclos with the funds.
Right.
But so it's really, we recognize the importance of that. It's a complex product. I think we didn't even realize in some ways, in some sense, what we were getting ourselves into when we jumped into it, the full extent of it. But the more I think we want to open source the project as fast as possible and just build out that ecosystem. In terms of the actual NFTs themselves, there's just sort of, I guess I can get a little bit into the thinking behind that, because we wanted to set up, we wanted to offer NFTs that would essentially give holders a sense that they're holding a piece of an ecosystem. So that was like question one. How can we set up an NFT so the holders feel they're holding a piece of this ecosystem, the Cyclos ecosystem, and be a part of it from the start, or the nascent stages? I guess the other one was, how can we love NFTs that, like, there's a lot of amazing fun projects out there, but I think utility is a really interesting use case and point.
Utility. Yeah. I am all about utility of your NFTs. Star Atlas is shitting on me because I can't use my Star Atlas NFTs. What can I do with my Cyclos Cougar NFT?
So there's a bit of game theory behind it. And keep in mind, this is a developing project in the sense that we want to iterate with the DAO that we're building around the product. But essentially, we've tried to build a tokenomics or an economics underlying the NFTs, so that there's an incentive to hold the NFT, first of all, long term, and it accrues value as people use the Cyclos, Cyclos itself. So how does that happen? We're taking 25% of the fees from Cyclos Swap, which is one of our live products at the moment, on one end, and then 15% of the royalty fees from the Cougars, and essentially combining them together to cull the Cougars. So this is our burning mechanism. So I guess what we've done differently here is we've tied the burn, or the in some sense, the value of the NFT to the product itself, one of the Cyclos products itself. So the idea here too is that not only as a Cougar holder are you sort of now, in theory, the supply of Cougars is deflating as people use Cyclos, the swap. But you're also incentivized as a Cougar holder to participate in the ecosystem and use the swap, because essentially the more fees that go from that swap to the Cougars burn wallet, the more Cougars get burned.
And I just linked that, sorry to interrupt you, I just linked that the explainer in the live chat questions, and you did say 25% of the fees from Cyclos and 15% from the actual royalty fees from the Cougar goes towards burning the Cougar, like the kind of like a buy the floor, burn the floor kind of thing, which does usually, that does increase floor price, I guess. What about the bottom side of that graph there? Can you talk to us about how these royalty fees feed into the liquidity pool, which gives deeper liquidity, which means, swaps are a lot better, bigger whales, then you get more fees?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you hit it on the head. So we're taking 25% of the royalty fees from the Cougars themselves, and essentially putting them into CYS, Cyclos tokens of CYS. Liquidity pool, which deepens the liquidity of CYS, but it also, in essence, we wanted to find a way to sort of take the CYS, not just take it out of circulation, but in essence take it out, because it's not being sold or bought per se, but use it for something in the ecosystem. So like you said, provide deeper liquidity. And I guess so one thing that's not in this graphic is that Cougar holders will, and this is sort of more of a long-term value proposition, but that Cougar holders will get airdropped tokens from any projects that are built on top of Cyclos from the, whether it's if the projects receive grants, for example, from the funds of the raise, we will airdrop those tokens to Cougar holders.
Now that is good utility for the token, something that the holders can expect to have some more tokens that from people that build on top if they get a grant. But aren't you worried about kind of the security aspect of this? We saw previously that FTX didn't want to list anything that gave them tokens in advance, or this sort of stuff? Are you worried about the securitizing of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's various opinions on whether airdrops constitute security, but I think as long as it's not coming from actual revenue itself, I think we're still in relatively, I don't know if you can call it safe gray zone territory, but I think we're relatively okay.
It's all gray. None of the old people in Congress or anywhere in the world know how to deal with NFTs. Everything's gray.
Right.
Right on. Okay, so we've talked a bit about the actual cycle that we've got here. Now, my big question for you is, I think you do have a differentiating factor of your NFT will have tokens airdropped from people who are building on top of Cyclos. Any other major, differentiating factors between you and any other NFT or AMM that's in Solana at the moment? Because I know Lifinity is doing something similar to this, where they're selling their NFTs, it goes into their liquidity pools, but they're not offering for anyone to build on top of them. So you have that above Lifinity. Any other big differentiating factors you feel you want to share?
I guess, I don't know. I don't see buying a piece of the ecosystem. It's not something that, or holding a piece of the ecosystem. We thought that was pretty new. I would say, haven't seen a huge amount of projects that have tried to tie in as much as possible. And keep in mind, this is an evolving, we are very open to working with the community on the economics of this, because I think it's the only way to really, you can better align the incentives if you include the voice of the community. And that's something right now that we're doing. We have a kind of ongoing discussion within the Cougar Click Discord. Anyone who is whitelisted is included in a group called OG Cougars. And within that OG Cougar group, we've had some good sort of banter about how, different ways we can incorporate more clever incentive mechanisms, and it's sort of just what we're trying to do is really make this as much as possible a community oriented project. That's something that I think as well, not to necessarily go off on a tangent here, but ultimately we aim to do a Cyclos as well, to decentralize the project. There aren't a huge amount of examples to follow. I think that's sort of a space or a road that not many projects have gone down on Solana yet, I guess because the ecosystem is still young, but it's something we ultimately aim to do. I think it's really important to progressively decentralize the project.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like I can say from like Uniswap style, like the actual Uniswap protocol is decentralized, but the UI isn't. So people might be able to interact with the Cougar with the Click AMM, but it might be decentralized. It's good. So I want to move on a little bit here. I want to talk about what's the next. Sorry, you did mention the OG Cougars. Is that the Cougar Den? Is that what you were referring to?
Essentially, the Cougar Den will be anybody that we'll be utilizing Grape protocol to allow any NFT holder who is holder of the Cougar Click to become a part of the Cougar Den, which is our DAO.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I've seen lots of other protocols doing this as well, and it helps them get their DAO up and running and make some decisions.
Absolutely.
So what's after? If anyone's got some questions, please post it in the live chat questions. We do have one question we'll get to a bit later. What's the next phase? What are you guys planning after you've released? First off, what's the NFT mint release date, and how much is it going to cost? I can see it here on screen, but for those who aren't watching the screen, how much is going to cost? And then after that, what is the next iteration of Cyclos? You'll be adding concentrated liquidities. What are the other things you have in your roadmap at the moment?
Yeah, so for the mint date of Cougar Click, it is December 9th at 12 p.m. UTC. So only a couple days, 4 days away, three and a half days away. and essentially we'll be publishing, mint details will all be published at 12 p.m. in the Discord and the Twitter. In terms of Cyclos, so I guess this goes a bit back to what we talked about, or what we touched on earlier, because I think for us, we really do see an important step. Well, there's a couple things. One facet of this is spurring growth on top of the platform, because ultimately, for concentrated liquidity to be adopted and used at a really high level, I think a lot of the same features that one has come to expect on this sort of Curve or Uniswap, the sort of ease of use of setting and forgetting, those types of things. I think if we make them available, it will open the product up to more users. And we think our thesis is that's especially the case for Cyclos, because with Solana, the fees are drastically lower compared to Ethereum.
I love it.
Right. So there's a in essence, I mean, in this sense, I guess, it's not like this is it didn't take rocket science to it might be rocket science developing the protocol, but the actual programming aspect, but the idea itself, I mean, is not rocket science, right? It's almost just putting different DeFi Legos together in a way that hasn't been done before, and essentially that's taking this amazing idea of concentrating positions and putting it on a low fee, high frequency network. And our idea is that should lower the barrier to entry and allow people, if anything, just to experiment with it, because it's not going to necessarily cost the cost, or the barrier to entry is not so high. But I don't want to digress from the question too much. So that's one aspect. We have a lot of use. I think kind of the second point is there are, concentrated liquidity offers some utilities that I think haven't necessarily been explored, even on UniV3, like bootstrapping token launches with a lot less, or in a cheaper way, a much more cost-efficient way. So these are all use cases that we're exploring with partner projects, sort of as we I would say intend to explore more deeply after the actual protocol is launched. So I guess one is building additional functionalities on top, whether that come from the team itself or other teams that we're working with. And secondly, it's to partner with as many projects as possible to actually spur organic growth on the market maker. So part of that is working with the obvious ones, right? DEX aggregators. We're aggregating liquidity.
You're on Serum, yeah?
Right now, yes. Yeah. So actually, that's a point that might be worth bringing up. So initially, the product was born out of the idea that we would build concentrated liquidity purely on Serum. We have since deviated from that model for a number of reasons. So and then I guess this is an interesting sort of discussion because it goes into some of the points concerning, building on an earlier stage network like Solana. So, there were a few points that we perhaps, you could say speed bumps or potential issues that we saw. We released an alpha mainnet about a month ago that was built purely on top of Serum. We didn't have any private liquidity. And there were a number of functions that were not so, I would say, how should I put this? They were extremely complicated to deploy that one would expect on a DeFi product. APY, for example, we were essentially building a layer 3 on top of Serum itself. So we had our RPC nodes interacting with their RPC nodes, and it's a highly complex operation that, how should I put it? we decided that, okay, how can we solve the problems that we're running into right now? If we have our own private liquidity, then we can sort of break away from we don't have to depend on any other ecosystem or any other protocol. We don't have to update with them. And we can sort of fully implement concentrated liquidity without having to make any compromises on functionality, which ultimately end up affecting the end user. So that was a pretty big learning experience for us, just in the sense that we had set out to build something on decentralized order books and another product, and we ended up going down the private liquidity, private pools route in the end,
Right.
which is what we're working on now.
So you're not sorry, you're not actually on Serum at the moment. You're coming off Serum.
So we'll still we'll still have functionality and a integration with Serum. Our swap at the moment is still integrated with Serum, but we'll be sort of progressively moving away from Serum.
Right. And on a more general note, do these difficulties you mentioned, do they still exist now? Because I know the Serum devs still do some stuff. Like, is it still problematic for you guys?
Well, because we're moving away, it's not an issue. So our it's how should I put this? We have the swap, which is not an issue. It's very we actually worked with Serum to update their swap. Our dev team did. There's no issues there with integration. The sort of hangups or speed bumps we ran into were to do with integrating the concentrated liquidity market maker on top of Serum. Right. Just the market maker, not any other functions of the product. We still have our DEX built on top of Serum. Cyclos DEX is on top of Serum. Cyclos Swap is on top of Serum. So yeah, this is purely to do with the concentrated liquidity.
Interesting that you're going through this trouble. I wonder if you guys have reached out to them, or they have some solutions already in hand for you. But
yeah, we work very closely with Serum. We work with them in the beginning, but we just ultimately decided there's a lot that we can do
privately.
Privately and ultimately on our own that will just allow for an overall better experience. And that also has to do with expanding the ecosystem too, because if we have products that are building on top of Cyclos, which is built on top of Serum, you're sort of abstracted like 3-4 layers already. And so if there's a problem with one product underneath, then it ultimately affects the entire ecosystem. So I think ultimately we decided, okay, if we want to move in the direction of sort of being fully autonomous within Solana, we're better off long term sort of standing on our own and having our own liquidity, and going from there. It gives us a lot more sort of agility and autonomy that we otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah, man.
So I
can follow the rationale. I can understand why. And in general senses, competition is good for the entire ecosystem. If as you say, Serum does get a little bit fucked up, then all of these projects building on top of you that have your NFT, they can't work well. So I think competition is good in a general sense. And we do have other protocols on Solana at the moment that are like private. I think Aldrin has its own pool. It's not on Serum. I'm sure there's lots of others that I don't even know.
Right. There's lots of different things going on and different combinations, right? Some that are partially integrated with Serum. So that's just ultimately we decided that was the way to go, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, all good, man. Let's pivot things a little bit. I posted in the live questions that your team with some pictures. We've talked about your team, but I want to talk about your art for a good maybe 5 minutes. Can you tell us about who your artist was, why you decided actually going down tigers, and what kind of traits we're looking at for your NFTs?
Slight correction there. Cougars.
Sorry, I said tigers. Cougars.
No problem. That's a good question. There's actually quite a specific reason. So the way we ended up with our partners for the art, our partners are called Solitars. They're actually they're currently working on their own NFT project, which has to do with initially I think they started off purely NFT, but now they're building a sort of product that's going to work in conjunction with those NFTs. I don't know how much they've made public yet, so I don't want to necessarily reveal that, but they are a really amazing team out of Vietnam. and we connected with them via. We started looking around for partner projects that would be willing to work with us. Essentially, we put it out quite directly and said, this is what we are. We're a concentrated liquidity market maker looking to expand the ecosystem via an NFT project. And we're looking for partners to launch the project with. And so we spoke with a number of potential partners, but we ended up getting a really great, it just fit, I guess, with Solitars. And I guess they saw the vision of what we wanted to do. And, it's funny, when we were actually thinking about like iterating the ideas for the actual line itself, the NFT space is absolutely saturated beyond all belief when it comes to different avatars, animals. So many things have been, everything you can imagine has been used. But the thought process behind this is actually rather simple. We wanted to go with an animal, an avatar that hadn't been used yet. And obviously CryptoKitties cats is a huge thing. I think cats are probably one of the most humanity's favorite animal, closely followed by dogs. Debatable, I know, but our thinking was somewhere along those lines. And but cougars had not been used yet. There just weren't any cougars out there. And
I'm sure if we go to like Ethereum, OpenSea, I'm sure someone would have done it, but nothing prominent anyway, and nothing in Solana. So you're definitely different there.
Right. Yeah. So as far as we could tell, there was no cougars out there, and so we decided to run with that. And it also gave us a lot to work with in terms of the cougars are a rather very defined facial features and a sort of a very iconic animal. So it just gave us a good base to work with. And it was a really interesting process iterating the imagery and developing that because it was all done online over the course of a month, back and forth between our team and the Solitars team. And pretty much every day we'd spend a few hours going back and forth, and it was a really fun process to be involved in, and to partner with some, because it's not a typical part, to of all the partnership experiences we've had, this has been a very, I should say, quite an involved one. And you have all the technical aspects involved with an NFT launch, but just having that sort of creative aspect was really interesting.
Yeah, like I've seen videos of people creating this, and it does take a lot of work. It's not simple stuff.
It does, yeah, absolutely.
What about the traits for these cougars? What trait should I actually be looking for when I met one of these? A crown on the king cougar?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the crown is a rare trait. We have, I guess the laser eyes.
Of course.
Is another one. Yeah. In fact, I can even bring up in a minute. I can bring up the rarity table. But yeah, there are I guess quite a few. We'll be releasing the rarity table on how rare it is.
Nice.
But we've I think we've got quite a fun combination of traits in there. We tried to include some classic stuff, but also try and be a bit more unique as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's unique. Yeah, they look different than some of the other NFTs I've seen, and I just linked how rare it is in the chat for anyone. Let's take a question from Kosh Bayer. Oh no, not that. That's unrelated. It was from Kosh Bayer again. When will listing new exchange? Are you guys planning to get CIS on any centralized exchanges? FTX, KuCoin, OKX?
Yeah, so we are. I would say we have an ongoing connection to or dialogue with exchanges, but we're not listing anything before mainnet launch. So our thing right now is full speed ahead on mainnet launch, and once that's live, then we will push for subsequent listings. Yeah,
right on. And you did have your IDO. Was it on Selenium?
We did a sort of dual IEO IDO. So part of that was on Selenium and part of it was on Gate.
Oh, Gate.io. Nice. Okay. What's your favorite trait, by the way? I was going to ask. I think I'm going to ask everyone else I'm interviewing. What's your favorite trait? What do you want for?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't catch that. There was a bit of a breakup.
What's your favorite trait in the NFT collection you're about to release?
Ooh, favorite trait. Perhaps it's the deal with it glasses. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the deal with it meme. But if you Google deal with it, look up images. We haven't seen them in any other collection.
Oh yeah, the
actually,
2D glasses.
They're actually on my avatar right now. If you look at my avatar, those glasses, I've always kind of loved the deal with it meme in general, and so we included it in the collection.
Yeah, I've linked it in the live chat questions. It's the little 2D glasses that have like the white spots on the side. Yeah, I've seen those. Those are good. I like it. All right, let's move on. We'll talk a little bit general terms because we are getting up there in the time. It's about 40 minutes now. We'll look to wrap up very soon. In general terms, can you give me your thoughts about Solana at the moment? Post-hackathon, we've had an ecosystem boom. We are in the slight dip at the moment. How are you feeling about Solana?
It's an interesting time to be in right now because I think that we had this massive, and I don't know if I guess I'm a bit, my perspective is obviously colored by the fact that I'm involved in the project end, but I do feel like there was this sort of, there was the Solana summer push, and there was this real fever pitch with all these products doing amazing products that came out of the first couple hackathons. And a lot of them are just, I guess, all that work and all that energy is just coming to fruition right now. So I do sort of, I'm hoping that there's a sort of second wave, yeah, of just, a lot of these projects that got so much attention, a couple months ago, once they're coming out with their final products, that people will just start, we'll have usable products out there, and it will really, it'll really beef up the ecosystem. Because yes, Solana, there's so much going on in Solana, but, measured against BSC, Ethereum, of course, it's relatively, the playing field is relatively small. Nothing wrong with that. That just means it's early, and I think I'm really excited to see there's so much, I think it's easy to sort of get a bit, what's the word, saturated or jaded and think, this is it. Okay, we've seen the narrative play out. It's done. Time to move on to another layer one or whatever. But it's right when people start to feel that way that we really see the actual products coming out and the growth happening.
I think sorry to interrupt you, I think every day that we spend in the top 10 on CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap is another day that a developer sees us and says, hey, let's go check out Solana. How can we build on there? Is Rust easy? Can I do a little app? It's just up from now, I think. Absolutely.
And the thing about Solana too that's really interesting is I've come in contact with a lot of people who just they're not coming over necessarily from other ecosystems. It's important that people do come over from other ecosystems, but I've met a lot of people who are just new to crypto in general and got in via Solana, and I find that really interesting because that what if you want to call it fresh blood or whatever, it brings in new ideas. It gets people who are thinking outside the box and not just not to say there's anything wrong with taking ideas from other ecosystems. They're there for a reason, but to just bring in innovation, bring in new ideas. And I think we're only just starting to see that really happen. People I think are probably a bit tired too from just the bull market in general, and but there's that they'll get motivated by the second wave of products and partnerships and things that come out of all the hard work that's been being done.
Yeah, man, I had a really great comeback, but I just, oh no, here it is. Yes, like we probably do see a lot of people coming over from other chains coming onto Solana to build maybe copycat protocols, similar things that we've seen in other chains, but we haven't actually seen anyone coming from outside of Solana to create products that are specifically for Solana, utilizing high TPS, high finalization states. We haven't kind of really seen that, and it hasn't really blossomed into what Solana can offer above every other protocol, every other chain that I've seen. So I'm waiting Absolutely. For that kind of time to actually happen, for that time to come. And then everyone's going to be like, oh, Solana's doing really different things compared to every other ecosystem out there. So let's go check them out.
Yes. And I mean, it's, the beginnings of that are happening. I mean, they've been happening for a while, and there are some, especially the metaverse narrative is really, it's before people were going on about the metaverse narrative. We had projects like DeFi Land, for example, that are incorporating literally DeFi with gaming, which I think is super cool. I love the concept. And I think only can that happen on, or I think it's much more suitable for Solana. And whether that means are we going to see, there's a lot of funds going into social networking on Solana right now. I think obviously the metaverse narrative is there. There's a lot to come, still a lot to come, and it's just a matter of waiting and seeing what comes out. But I really do believe that there's going to be Solana's going to really come back to prominence. Beyond the first wave of what we've seen.
Yep, I feel the same way. Now, speaking of Solana in general, before we wrap it up, are there any tools in the ecosystem of Solana that you guys could really use? I don't know about your development process, such as DAO structures, maybe utilizing squads for your NFTs. What do you guys need to be developed, or you have all the tools you need for Cyclos and the Cougar Click?
Oh, I would say it's the opposite, in the sense that there's so much to be built. I think that's one of the other, it's the pro of coming, one of the pros of coming into an ecosystem early on is that there's a lot more sort of room to play in, and less sort of saturation, but so much has been done by, our team has had to build so much ourselves. Indexers, for example. We build our own indexers. I know Graph is announced at Breakpoint that they are coming into Solana, but we've had to build our own indexer because nobody is there right now that we were aware of. I know Oracles is another one that will be utilized. We've essentially, we have some news coming up on that as well pretty soon in terms of Oracle integrations, but there's still a lot of room for oracles in the Solana space. I guess those are two big examples that come to mind just from the actual development process, but there's just so much that it's funny because, of course, we were mentioning how Solana is holds all this potential because new people are coming in with fresh blood and creating new products, but at the same time there's still a lot of room for these really basic functions these value offerings that have been built on other chains that haven't actually really been explored very in depth on Solana yet. There's still a lot of room to come into the Solana ecosystem and build them. There's still a very real need. But that's part of what makes it fun, I think, is that it's not just all there laid out at your feet for you to put together, that you actually do have to, there's not a huge amount of documentation. There's not a huge amount of these like I said, oracles, indexers. There's just a lot to be developed, and I think that's something that's particularly exciting for us.
Yeah, it's like it's the age of exploration and experimentation, and if you strike gold, then you get to extract a lot of value from this, and people flock over to your protocol when you do something really great that is needed in the ecosystem.
Absolutely. There you go.
Yeah. All right, so we'll start thinking about wrapping it up. We're at the 50-minute mark now. Any last words you want us to share with your community? I know you are having an NFT, Cougar Click. Why French, by the way?
Actually, it's not really French. It's corrupted French, I would say.
Dirty French.
The correct French would be le clic de Cougar.
Oh yeah, true.
But in this case, we sort of just used a corrupt French because we found to us it was funny. I don't know if it's funny to anybody else, but we wanted to keep it light and lighthearted and fun. And the Cougar Click just sounded a bit playful, and ultimately I think that's what okay, let me put it this way. If you have a DeFi protocol itself, you don't want the optics and the imagery necessarily to be super silly and playful. Yeah, because you've got people's money locked up, and but you want it to be serious in a way. At least that was our thinking. But we see this as an opportunity to really bring people in. Memes are powerful. Community is powerful. NFTs are powerful. This is our outlet for that side of things, where we can be creative and fun and just bring as many people into DeFi via the NFT route as possible. I think that's ultimately one of the big things. I didn't really touch on it much in this particular call, but NFTs in and of themselves, I mean, there's so much crossover between the NFT world and the DeFi world that's not necessarily being explored really in depth. And there's a lot of people who are holding NFTs that haven't yet really gotten stuck into the DeFi world as well. And so we need more people to come over into the DeFi world to accelerate adoption. And to us, this was our way of kind of creating the beginnings of a community that is can have fun and is incentivized to learn because they feel like they're a part of something, but they can ultimately become more I guess they hold a stake in the protocol, and they feel like they're a part of something. So that's sort of our way of doing it.
Very well said, man. And I totally agree that NFTs have way more utility that we haven't even explored yet, even in the real life and not just in crypto. But yeah, there is definitely an intersection between DeFi and NFTs, and you guys seem to be exploring it. So yeah, we'll end it here, guys. If there's any last minute questions, put it in the live chat questions for me. The Cougar Click Hantu will be minting 0.8 Sol. The date is the 9th, and further details will be provided in their Discord. I've linked that down in the link description in the live questions. If you're at home watching on YouTube, I've left the link down below in the YouTube description. You can find them on Discord, join them, ask them some questions. You can go to their app, which will be going on mainnet very soon, probably in January. Hantu, I want to say thank you very much for joining the Grape protocol and appearing for an AMA.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was great speaking with you.
My pleasure, man. We'll see you very soon, and I'll probably be minting one myself because I want some airdropped tokens from everyone else that's going to build on top of you. Everyone else is going to build on a concentrated liquidity provider, a launch pad for concentrated liquidity. Oh man, I just saying it. I'm like, ooh, it's different. I want it.
All right, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, man. Okay, we'll end it here for now. Thank you very much for watching on YouTube. Thank you everyone in the audience. There haven't been any questions. Nothing that I can see. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe. I will see you later with another Grape Solana Alpha video or an AMA coming very soon. Thank you. Ciao.